Animism, the belief that all things, living and non-living, are imbued with spirit. Types of beliefs 3. Supernatural practices and practitioners. Shamans specialize in dealing with supernatural beings and forces through a variety of techniques. Brings a unique and personal connection to the supernatural, usually after a near-death experience or a psychological break. Techniques include drumming, dancing, medicinal flora, psychosomatic practices like trance, and the shaman connects with the other world and brings back information. The shaman is a regular member of that society. It's not held in a specific place. The only time the shaman is called on to do shamanic exercises is when they're needed. The rest of the time, they're just normal members of that society. Priests, rabbis, ministers, imams. A full-time supernatural practitioner who is part of a bureaucracy. In these, the established religion is there, and people are then brought in and indoctrinated into that belief and officiate that belief throughout their life to maintain the system. At this point, you have large societies. When you have priests, they are permanent positions, rabbis, ministers, imams. They are maintaining the status quo. It is part of their religious job. So full-time bureaucracy, supernatural practitioners who is part of a bureaucracy, bought into an existence religious belief to officiate rituals and maintain the status quo. Shaman, individual who is recognized as having the ability to mediate between the world of humanity and the worlds of gods or spirits, but who is not a recognized official of any religious organization. One who brings one's own tradition to the forefront. Shamans have constant and personal contact with the spiritual world. Priests, imams, and rabbis, one who is formally elected or appointed to a full-time religious office. One who is trained in an existing belief and assigned to maintain the status quo, to carry on an existing tradition. Witchcraft. The ability to harm others by harboring malevolent thoughts about them, the practice of sorcery. A way of social control in some traditional societies. Witchcraft is a social belief system to be able to find out who has caused the problem. It must be, if we don't have a natural cause, something we can see, a witch must have cursed us. Must have cursed the animals, and that's why they die. Must have cursed the crops. Must have cursed my family member because they're sick. And so this is then used. Witchcraft is scapegoating. It is a social mechanism of scapegoating. The film that I put up with this chapter, The Burning Times, demonstrates that very, very clearly. We use scapegoats today. They don't always have to be tied directly to religion. The migrants that are coming here, the refugees that have been labeled illegal aliens and criminals, are scapegoats for a system that has failed. And that's why they're leaving their homes to come to where all the resources have been brought. Witchcraft. It'll come up in just a second. Here we go.
To understand more about their notions of witchcraft, Evans Pritchard studied case histories of people who suspected that witchcraft was being directed at them. The only source of witchcraft that Zandi recognized was other human beings. These people were seen as unconscious agents for this malevolent force. To find out who was the source of their misfortune, Zandi consulted oracles. These were procedures which enabled them to get answers to those nagging suspicions involving witchcraft. The first step was usually the Iwa, or rubbing board oracle. This is still used today in an attempt to find out who is causing misfortune and what you can do about it. Gaguda has a sick mother, and he's come to consult the oracle. But before looking into the cause of the illness, the diviner first wanted to establish why a white film crew was in Zandiland in the first place. Was this likely to be the source of any future witchcraft?
Remember, colonialism destroyed their lives.
Once it was established that we weren't up to any mischief, he got down to the real purpose of Gaguda's visit. Evans Pritchard found that the world of Zandi ideas was beginning to make sense by following up case histories just like Gaguda's.
He's asked whether she's going to die and if anyone is bewitching her. He's been told she's not going to die and that it's not obvious that anyone is bewitching her, but if he performs certain magical practices, he'll be sure that she won't die. In Zandiland, there's a hierarchy of oracles, and to make absolutely sure, he's consulting the poison oracle, or the Bengi. Now, Bengi is a strychnine-based poison that is administered to small chickens, and depending on the question asked and whether the chicken dies or not, he'll have his answer.
Bundu, bangana, mungari denga na guguja. Denga oyaka jeri, kantuno ni kwa kebana. Denga jibala dewey. Denga ni jiri akorogangwa, mungi shungeli nangwa. Gugudu. Gukazali bengi. Konde tishi, konde ni tikitiki ni kuliani jingambana. Yele mbumbia konde baku bebuli frute, konde ubize konde. Ta konde yuwa, shigo kango yingiba, shanyangate. Denga na gugudu. Gukazali bengi. Jibala fujiga fuji. Gugudu, beti.
The poison oracle has given its answer. Gaguda asked if his sick mother got the appropriate magic, would she live? Now the first question was posed in such a way that if the chicken died, the answer was yes. The chicken has died, but just to make doubly sure, he asked the question again of a second chicken, who was also given poison. If my mother, who is sick, gets the appropriate medicine, will she live? If so, the chicken itself was to live, and it has. So he obviously now has to get hold of the right kind of magic.
For the right magic, Gaguda has to go to another kind of expert. White colonials named this type of ritual specialist the witch doctor, and his job is to combat witchcraft. To achieve this, he has a large repertoire of magic at his disposal, in the form of spells, substances, and procedures. Like so much medical advice around the world, it's dispensed with a certain amount of ceremony.
The Azande witch doctor is both diviner and magician. Since Azande believe that witches may at any time bring sickness and death upon them, they are anxious to establish and maintain contact with these evil powers, and by counteracting them, control their own destiny. Azande believed that witches can injure them by virtue of an inherent quality. A witch performs no rite, utters no spell, and possesses no medicines. An act of witchcraft is a psychic act. Azande believed that witchcraft is a substance in the bodies of witches. It has been described to me as an oval blackish swelling or bag attached to the edge of the liver. They say, when people cut open the belly, they have only to pierce it, and witchcraft substance bursts through with a pop. Azande need not live in continual dread of witchcraft, since they can enter into relations with it, and therefore control it by means of oracles and magic. By oracles, they can foresee the future dispositions of witchcraft and change them before they develop. By magic, they can guard themselves against witchcraft and destroy it.
The witch doctor is an important person in Zande society. He is called on to locate and combat the ever-present menace of witchcraft. And it's his magic that gives him the power to see the evil intentions of others. In spite of following the witch doctor's advice and finding the right medicine, Gaguda's mother did die a week later, but his faith is unshaken. Evans Pritchard realized that the Azande didn't think of witchcraft as ridiculous, and they still don't. It isn't disproved or invalidated by its failures any more than astrology, Marxism, or Christianity. His published findings were to raise a whole series of new questions about what could be considered rational thinking in any culture.
I think that in this generation, with good reason, we appreciate that we're not as rational as our grandfathers thought they were.
David Pocock, like Evans Pritchard's other students, took up this new enthusiasm for other people's sets of ideas.
We realised perhaps we've got to live with a darker side of the human nature. In order to live with it, we've got to understand it as best we can. And that witchcraft is not about funny old women with pointed hats, but it is precisely an expression, it's one of the ways in which this human envy, human hate, human spite is expressed and managed.
Before Evans Pritchard started the field of African studies of religion, anchoring all the religious beliefs in the social life of the people, there wasn't any study of African religions. There was mythology, and there was odd beliefs, and there was fetishism and magic and such like, but there was nobody that ever thought that you could take the metaphysical ideas of African people, which were not written down, and treat them with the same seriousness and same philosophical questioning as you might the ideas of a great religion, of one of the world religions. So this was revolutionary.
Discovered that witchcraft was a practical way of organising life for the Azande, Evans Pritchard even tried running some of his own affairs in the field
along the lines of Zande beliefs. For instance, no one would willingly accompany me unless I was able to produce a verdict of the poison oracle that witchcraft did not threaten our project. And if one goes on arranging one's affairs, organizing one's life in harmony with the lives of one's hosts, one must eventually give way. If one must act as though one believed, one ends in believing as one acts.